Yeah, I have it on here, but,
Heidi, when you're ready, let me know. All set? Okay. The right side. Okay, the meeting is now in session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence.
Let's take a moment to remember the two firefighters, officers that passed since our last board meeting.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, we've got quite a night this evening. Hopefully it'll go by relatively quick and everybody will be on their ways. But our first order of business would have normally been our badge pinning, but not all of the participants are here yet. They're en route. So we're going to adjust it a little bit and go to the next item on the agenda, which is years of service recognition. Chief Mazulis.
Good evening. We've got 3 members of our organization that hit a pretty big benchmark, 10 years of service with Sedona Fire. Tonight we're going to recognize them. And I'll start with Firefighter Paramedic Jacob Hanna. He was hired in 2012 as full-time firefighter, got his paramedic in 2015. His unit citation for the Lee Mountain Rescue in 2013 and another one for the Slide Fire response in 2014. Jake's got an associate's degree in general studies and a bachelor's in corporate fitness and wellness. Currently he's on our Wildland team and working on getting his engine boss certification. He's also a member of our technical rescue team. And he's been married to his high school sweetheart for 12 years, and he's the proud father of 3 boys, ages 8, 3, and 10 months old. And when he's not here working for the community, he is hunting and enjoying the outdoors, and he's a Little League baseball coach, and he also works with the Prescott football Youth Mighty Mites, and he's recently been voted the president of the Youth Football League over there in Prescott, so he's a busy guy. The next gentleman who happens to be here is none other than Tyler Wu, hired in September of 2012, and in 2014 he got a unit citation for the Slide Fire response, 2015 a unit citation for the 89A Rescue, 2016 Customer Service Award, and the 2017 Community Service Award. Wu's got a Fire Science Technology Associate's degree, and outside of work, when he's not acting as the honorary mayor of the village of Oak Creek, he's taking care of his wife, Danielle, and his kiddos, TJ and Lucy, who are sitting there in the audience with his parents. He's also got his dog that he enjoys spending time with, and he's trying to get better at golf and do a little shed hunting as he goes along. So Tyler, since you're here, if you'll come up, present you with your pin. And lastly, we've got Firefighter Paradigilink, who's out at Station 4 today. It looks like he's running a call. He was hired again in 2012 as a full-time firefighter, got his paramedic in 2015, and he's got an associate's degree in marketing. And he's another one of our folks that married his high school sweetheart, Kelly. They've been married for 21 years. He's got his kids, Rain and Jasmine, and Rain wrestles and plays baseball, and his daughter's a volleyball player. And when they're not working or doing other things, they've got a hunt coming up, and they try to spend a lot of time outside. And also dabbling in woodworking, currently working on a natural edge wood table, and we'll see how that turns out.
All right.
So I want to say thanks. These are all great members of our organization, and they do really good stuff for us. If I may, we have it further down the list, but looking at the door, I don't see it opening, so, if I could take a moment and introduce our new GIS specialist, Matt Spinelli, and, let him have the mic to tell you a little bit about himself. Okay. I cleared it with him.
Hi, I'm Matt Spinelli. I'm a certified GIS professional. I come to you from Grand Junction, Colorado, where I've been for 11 years. GIS is environmental consulting and government contracting work. Background in physical and environmental sciences, grew up with Wildfire as a cardinal. I'm trying to get back into that. Yeah, here I am. I'm your new GIS guru. So, pleasure to meet you all.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Anybody else that can introduce?
Well, before we move any further, on behalf of the board, to the 3 firefighters reaching this first milestone, 10 years, a 30-year career is now behind you. And at this point, you're probably more a mentor now for the younger firefighters coming on board. All the while, start moving up the ladder a little bit. We look forward to seeing that. There's probably some potential captains and engineers, and who knows, down the road, even maybe chiefs.
Looks like it to me.
Yeah. So, we look forward to seeing you guys, as time moves on down the road, but enjoy your assignments while you're there. Stay safe and work hard. So thank you very much. Chief, do you want to continue moving forward on the agenda? I think it's probably the smart thing to do, and
I would agree, sir.
okay. I think so too. Okay. Or did you want to do any pictures before we move on with the group that's here?
I think they were gonna do some pictures outside.
Okay, very good. For all those that we just recognized, you guys are welcome to sit through the next hour and a half of this meeting, or you are free to go. So, of course, we have Chief Missoula still. His part is still coming up. So you're welcome to figure out what you guys want to do on that. Okay. Next item on the agenda is our regular business meeting. Do we have any public speakers, Chief?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Consist of the Okay, testing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let me know if they get that.
Hey, you're loud and clear now, Dave.
Okay, thank you. We will continue. Finance report?
All right, yes. So, looking at the numbers for the month of August, you'll see tax revenue came in just under, what we projected, only about $29,000 in tax revenue. For August, again, remember, beginning of the fiscal year, we don't see a lot of tax revenue. We don't, see our first big collection till we get a little bit in September and then a lot in, October and November. Non-levy revenues, we're at $423,000 for August, which is $100,000 over, what we had budgeted. Couple things driving that. One, our ambulance revenue, was at $238,000, so that's $46,000 over budget. And Wildland revenue was at $110,000, which was $38,000 over budget. So, two good, sources of non-levy revenue help drive a favorable cash position for us when you get to that number. As far as expenses go, personnel is our highest. We had $1.5 million in total personnel costs for the month of August. That was $95,000 over budget. Both our Wildland wages as well as timing on workers' comp. We essentially had 2 months of, not workers' comp, health insurance hit in the month of August, and so that's what's throwing off that variance on personnel costs. Buildings and land was under by $12,000, being driven by building repairs and maintenance. Vehicles and equipment was under budget by $6,000. If you remember, we kind of budgeted for a rather large increase in fuel, and those prices started kind of coming back down, so we're seeing some savings there. Communication IT was under budget by $38,000, and that was due to dispatch invoicing. We didn't receive our bill for the month of August. And then managerial was kind of right aligned at budget at $80,319 or $932 under budget. Year-to-date numbers still looking really good for the first 2 months of the fiscal year. Total revenues at $1,058,000. We're again on property tax collection right about where we anticipate to be, but really that $283,000 positive variance on revenues is those non-levy revenues, both in ambulance and Wildland, still really strong. On our expenses, again, through July and August, we're at $3.5 million in total expenses. We are under budget by $86,000. You'll notice for the month, for the year-to-date, personnel is actually kind of right at budget. We're only $7,300 over budget. And again, Wildland wages are really what's driving that. And again, we've got that overage on the revenue. So we've actually got more revenue and more wages than what we originally budgeted. So, but our net on Wildland still nets us a profit. The rest of our expenses are under budget across all other major categories, as you can see. Only thing I want to note on managerial, that will come back in line with budget. We haven't been billed for July on our ambulance billing. We didn't actually receive that invoice, but we did get August's invoice in September, so we need to go back and we're working with the billing company to get that invoice and get that in the system. So that'll come back in line with budget once we get that invoice built in. As far as percentage of expenses expended, we've spent 21% with 79% remaining. Breakdown on our percentage, personnel is our highest at 86%, followed by operations at 6%, and both managerial and communication are at 4%. Again, as we go through the fiscal year, that percentage of personnel will come down. At the beginning of the year, we are higher in personnel because we're not spending in a lot of other categories, as well as you add in the fact that we've got wildland deployments earlier in the year as well, which is also driving up our personnel costs as a percentage. So that'll come back down to more of that 80% that we typically see. And then finally, year-over-year cash position, we ended the year with $10.4 million total cash on hand, which is an increase of $400,000 from the previous year. Our other assets increased from $22.5 to $24.6 million, and total liabilities decreased slightly from $31.19 to $31.08. So with that, again, not a lot going on in finance for the first part of the fiscal year. We are working on some audit prep stuff right now, and unless there's any questions, that's my report.
Any questions from the board? Gabe, I've got 2 questions for you.
Yes.
The cash on hand that you see up there is at 10 plus.
Correct.
Normally it's floats around 12. Do we have any major purchases that would explain why it's down that much?
So, a couple things I want to point out is one of the biggest reasons is we burn through more cash in the first part of the fiscal year because we don't have our our tax revenues that have hit yet. So where we're at from a budgetary standpoint, we actually expect to have gone through $2.8 million in cash, and we've actually only gone through 2.4.
Okay.
And so that's where we're actually $400,000 ahead of where we were last year. But again, where we expect to be from a expending of cash because of first half taxes haven't been received.
Okay. And secondly, in your summary, you mentioned, personnel expenses at 95,000 over budget.
Yes.
What do you perceive as the length of time to balance that out?
We already have when we look at the year-to-date,
Okay.
and that's why I said when we got to the year-to-date numbers, we're actually right in line with budget. We're only, thank you, Heidi. From year-to-date, we're actually only 7,000 ahead, on personnel, so we're in good shape there. Plus, a lot of our overages in the month of August was either due to timing on an expense or wildland deployment costs, which obviously have that offsetting revenue as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so before us, we have the, move to approve the financial report for August 2022. Do I have a second? Second. Do I have any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Financial report for August stands. Thank you. Okay, Chief, I think you have some very important guests that have arrived.
We are clear for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what that means for the board here is that we have a badge pinning ceremony before us. And it's not that often that we have, number one, a badge pinning, and number two, this many people in the audience. So, and third, actually, I've never done a badge pinning before, so this is my first one. So it's with great honor and a privilege to have the duties of going through a bit of a ceremony with you, for you. So I'm going to stand up here and float around a little bit. My academy performance. Okay, well, in preparation for this, I thought, well, let me write a few things down here. And I thought if I write them all down and I got to read it, that's pretty boring. If I try to wing it, I'm going to miss something. You're going to know about it because we'll know what I missed. So I thought, well, let me just put together a few bullet points. And as I did that, I came to realize that what you've accomplished in your career has been nothing short of phenomenal because you've kind of moved through the ranks pretty doggone quick. Eventually come up to the position of fire chief. And fire chief is as high as you get. We're fortunate to have you here. We want to go over a few things over your career because it's worth mentioning. You came on board in 2000? Yes. 2006, you were a firefighter. It didn't take them long to figure out that I got to start moving up this ladder here. And so from 2006, he promoted up to fire captain. You were in that position through 2012. Another 6 years. Same there. And in 2012, you realized that the next promotional position was the battalion chief position, which you took, and you passed, and you became a battalion chief in 2012, out in the field for 3 years, 2015. Then you got bumped up to what we call now the operational supportive operations type of thing. You've been doing that since 2015, up until September 4th, after a heavy-duty testing process. One of two candidates that tested. We reviewed it all the results, and we came up with the decision that Chief Ed Mazulis was going to be our next fire chief. Lo and behold, here he is now. And at our walkout ceremony for the former chief, Chief John Trotline, we were sworn in. Tradition has it that the chief's position, to swear in or give the oath to all those that are hired under his command. Which leads us to today, which is that pinning presentation. And it's kind of odd because we put all these ceremonies with staff, we put all these ceremonies together, Heidi and her staff, and have this elaborate walk out, transfer of commands, patch pinning for some. Happy with the regular way we do badge pinning for other members and So, at your request, this is what we have, very informal, very close-knit group to watch your family, your back. So, education-wise, Ed, you've got from your AA in fire service, fire science, your B of A in leadership, and a master's in public administration. But I don't want to forget or overlook that you are a veteran of military service, the United States Navy. And, I think you were out for the Navy in 1990, okay. You had a few awards underneath your belt as a result of that. And I have them right here, because I think they are worth mentioning. Okay, mention often. As a member of the United States Navy, you had a good conduct medal. Point Meritorious Unit Award, National Defense Service Medal, Southwest Asia Service Medal with the Bronze Star, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal. And I tell you, I couldn't be more proud of you. I'm glad I'm sitting over there with you in this room running the show, because I feel completely confident that you're able to do it. So, congratulations. Give them a round of applause for that. But with that said, my honor and privilege, as I started out to say, that I'm about to give to your wife, Kristen, and your family, Katie, Abby, and Ava. Right? Did I get it right? Yep. So come on up. It is a great honor that I present to you to pin your husband. Pin your husband, Fire Chief Ed Mazulis. Ladies and gentlemen, Sedona Fire District's newest Fire Chief, Ed Mazulis. You actually get two, one for your everyday use and one for your class A's. May I say something? The floor is yours.
Don't leave yet. They're all getting hangry, but I wouldn't be here without these guys right here, and all these guys right here, and you folks, and, I'm excited for the opportunity, and I'm ready for the opportunity, and the only caveat is, you mentioned 6, 6, and 7, I'm hoping to stretch this run to 10, so, we'll see what happens. This mic's gonna drive me batty. But, you know, Chris and Kurt, thank you. For all you do. And, all right, let's do the board meeting.
Well, I know your family's here, Chief, and so what I'd like to do is take at least a 5-minute recess so you can take some pictures with them, maybe around the flag, maybe with board members, maybe with our legal counsel, or perhaps even our firefighter family in the back there. But let's go ahead and recess for 5 minutes, take a few pictures, and we'll resume. Okay? Okay. Well, it looks like the crowd is thinned out a little bit. The fanfare is over.
Yeah, the crowd was here first.
So with that said, let's show us back in session. Moving ahead with our agenda. Next item on the agenda is our Fire Chief's report. Chief Mazulis, the floor is yours.
Okay, first slide you can see there is our incident summary for the month. We're trending about 100 calls over last year's totals, and you can see our rescue calls went down a bit. in August, and that could have been monsoon weather, could have been some of the humidity and heat, but, anecdotally, just based on call volume this month, I think we're gonna see those rescue numbers click back up, with the cooling weather and the traffic coming in post-holiday. And our response by station, that's staying pretty standard. Station 1 and Station 3 are towing the line, with, our other stations giving them good backup. And, you know, responses are trending right along where we expect them to be, a little bit up, like I said. And, if there aren't any questions about response times, I'll turn it over to Director of Administrative Services, Heidi Rada.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Oh, here you go.
Sorry.
Of course.
All right, thank you. So back in, hey, we just saw Tyler Wu today. We did our spotlight, for events that have been happening around the district as things start to open up and more activities are available for us to participate in. We're able to, construct some of our own and get back to our regular habits. We've got the showcase right there, the MDA Feel the Boot kicked off that season of giving. Tyler Wu has always been a spearhead of that fundraising activity, and thank you, Gene McCarthy, for taking that great photo. We did have our retirement walkout for Chief Troutline, so thank you all who were there to participate in that and send off the former chief with a great celebration. And then, of course, we did do a 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony. We did the large 20-year anniversary last year, and so this year went a little bit smaller, with a respectful memorial service, the recording from Chief Missoula, and all that's on our YouTube page and our Facebook. Some staffing updates. We have jumped ahead with our GIS welcome, Matt Spinelli. So we got to meet him. Thanks for coming to the meeting, Matt. And Telecom, the radio technician position is still open. We're still trying to fill 2 of those positions at this time. I don't have an update on the number of applicants, but those are under review so that we can, now that we have found ourselves a new fire chief, we can move ahead and really focus on the telecom position, since the rest of our hiring is there. Firefighter, new hire academy, that's gonna start on Monday, so that 3-week orientation to Sedona Fire Academy. We have 5 new firefighters that will be starting with us. A thank you to Chris Ahern, who's welcomed at our meeting here today, for getting most of that coordinated, helped out Human Resources a lot by having her take over that portion of it, and then a team effort, getting them uniforms and getting everything that they need to start on their first day. Things that are coming up, we have, the date has changed at this time. We have another operational retirement that's coming up here, and that is going to be on the 26th, so that celebration changed, and we'll get that information out to the board members if you'd like to attend. We have been calling it Arbinger, but our outward mindset training from the Arbinger Institute. That is coming up as part of the new hire academy, in session. We love our microphone. We have a board member, our new board member will be taking that training. Kimberly Mathers, our new executive assistant. They're all kind of like, will be in that, and then all the new firefighters as well. Any better?
Yeah, you might want to keep 2 of them.
Yeah, it's a dice shoot. However we're gonna do it, it'll be fine. So that happens on Friday, the 30th of September. The chili cook-off, so the Sedona Rotary is doing their cook-off again. They're changing the time of year and the location, but they have asked Sedona Fire and invited us to participate in that again this year. And coming up, right on the heels of that, Fire Prevention Week, so that's our big public education week for getting people ready and aware of fire safety. And then we've just gotten the report last week that Halloween trick-or-treating is gonna return to Uptown this year. So we're gonna get a group together so that we can kind of figure out how we can go back in with both feet and put together a nice a nice return to trick-or-treating in Uptown. And then I'll just close my section with our mental health moment, which we talk about it occasionally just due to all kinds of mental health issues, but September is officially Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And I just sat in on Kairos, our health insurance pool, put together through our EAP program, a suicide awareness webinar, and I sat through that today, and it was just talked about recognition and what to do and what not to do. And it's not so much the practical of call this or do that, that it's, a layman's person of how you're gonna recognize, and just being aware and letting people know that you care. And we can all do that, and we could probably all do a little bit more of that. So just noticing the differences in our colleagues, asking a question, don't be afraid to ask, offer assistance, any assistance, even just being there, sitting and listening, and validating that somebody's going through something. We all too often want to tell people it's not that bad, or they'll get over it, or here's a good solution. We can't solve this problem, it's bigger than the person going through it, but we can be there to offer support, offer hope, and encourage courage. So I printed it out and put it on my door, our EAP resources for that, suicide hotline, and just your neighbor. We're all here for each other. So that is the end of my report. If there are any questions.
Just a comment with regard to mental health. Kitchen table, fire department, kitchen table, and peer support is vital. For those of us in the room and have served, you know that your brother or your sister is always there for you. All you have to do is reach out. Difficult for sure, but EAP is wonderful. However, kitchen table, that peer support within the fire service, it's vital. Saves a lot of lives.
Eugene, anything else? Thank you. Chief?
All right, operations update from Chief Coyle.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I hope you are doing well. And there you go. All right, we'll start out with significant events, and I'm going to take a different tact on this than telling you about the kind of calls that they ran, but just to highlight some of the behaviors that impressed me, and that I think are one of the reasons why we have such a highly competent fire department. So there was a call recently where there was a gunshot wound involved, and the patient ended up being transported, was still a viable patient at that time when they transported him. And a lot went into the response to that call. And as I reviewed the call and talked to the battalion chief about what occurred, there's some things that stood out to me. And one is the demonstrated ability to environments where there's a lot of uncertainty, like there often is with chaotic calls such as that, to defer risks that are in your control to defer. So focusing on one thing at a time and making sure that you're being iterative about those decisions and how they affect patient outcome, how they affect the safety of your crew, and how they affect your basically the competency response. And the other thing that call and a couple other ones that occurred in the last month remind me of was the ability to determine the worst case scenario is essential for framing calls and framing your response effectively. And I think for those of you that have been in the fire service, you know that if you create this fear of loss that is unbounded, like you haven't actually defined what the worst case scenario is in a situation that you're faced, that you tend to make decisions based on emotion instead of, or fear specifically, instead of based on your training and expertise. And so through some of these challenging calls that the crews responded to in the last month, I believe that they demonstrated a lot of those attributes of good critical decision-making in environments of uncertainty, and demonstrated why I think we have an excellent organization. So the next thing I want to talk to you about was Wildland Fire. And, we've had an engine over in California providing assistance to Cleveland National Forest for several weeks for multiple roles. They're coming back on Sunday, and for at least right now, that would be the last time. We're not going to send another crew out there like we have done, I believe, 4 times in a row in the past. Glad to have everybody back, but I think what's even more impressive to me is the impression that the crews, every one of the crews that are out there, made upon the Cleveland National Forest and the areas that they're working, where they're working. They were asked to extend multiple times, and I'm pretty confident that if there wasn't a need to uniformly apply the rules across for all the fire agencies in Arizona that were assisting, that they would have kept us until the snow flied. So once again, that's the people out there on the ground making a difference every day and demonstrating that competence consistently, even outside of our district, that makes a difference there. The next thing is GIS. So you guys met Matthew, and I had a really good onboarding conversation. We had some subsequent follow-up conversations. There's a lot of super sexy things that I want him to do, and there's also a lot of important, not so sexy things that he's going to need to do in the next month or two. And those, basically those not so sexy important things are going to be driving the priorities. And that includes getting up to speed with all of the different ways that we use geographic information systems to aid in our response, from our active 911s to our map books, to the way we use field maps, everything else. And so that's going to be the number one priority, is getting up to speed on that. And then after that, I'm excited to work with Matt to develop some dashboards and get some of the information that we that is important for individuals and for the board and for the public to understand how their call responses are relative to a standard and relative to their peers, and get that up in a more real-time area, because that helps improve decision quality. It helps improve outcomes. If people can see how they're doing. If you're trying to run your fastest half marathon, like my crazy wife does a lot, and you don't know what your fastest time is, or what time you should be shooting for, or what your time was on the last race, and what contributed to the good times and what impacted you to create the bad times, it's really hard to get better. So getting those times out in front of everybody is just part of what we're going to be working on as soon as he gets up to speed on the that critical stuff for mapping and for incident response. But speaking of mapping, my slide here is something that prior to Matt arriving, that the city of Sedona, myself, Coconino County, and Yavapai County worked together on. And this is one of the maps, but the city of Sedona was kind enough to also create these maps based on our input for all of the unincorporated areas within our district. And I actually just received those today. And so while this probably doesn't look so cool right now, it's a map with a bunch of boxes on it. Each one of those boxes represents an evacuation area. And why these boxes are so important, and why it took a lot of work to create them, is that when we have a fire that is threatening Sedona, you have a finite amount of time to make a decision. If you don't have this type of work done ahead of time, then what happens is you err on the side of caution, on the side of public safety, and you create bigger evacuation zones than are necessary. And so the downside of that is that you impact more people than you need to keep them safe. The other thing is if you decide to evacuate to a point that is difficult to control access and egress to, then it takes more law enforcement officers to be able to control access into those areas. And that takes them away from being able to do the necessary work they need to do elsewhere, including assisting with additional evacuations if that becomes necessary. So having these maps with these colored with these squares all over them that are thoughtful and that represent basically bites of the pie that we can take that are realistic for us to execute on, will make a huge difference when it comes time to implement an evacuation for a portion of the communities that we serve. The next thing I want to talk about was telecom, and I'm going to focus on the Pegasus communications project and the final report that we're working on right now. You know, it's become pretty apparent, and I think, you know, by next month, if not the month after, the board will have a full report to review, but that when you defer large costs for a long period of time, there becomes a point when you have to make some hard choices, and those look like either operating with a subpar communication system or investing in what it takes to bring that system up to an acceptable standard. And I feel like we're pretty much there. And the idea of this whole Pegasus report, this complete IT assessment, is to make sure that when we start taking those steps towards large projects and the necessary improvements, that they're thoughtful and that they're prioritized appropriately so they provide the most value for every action that we take. So that's what's going on there, and hopefully we can get that completed and in front of you shortly. The last thing about programs and projects that I'll share with you all is that I'm working right now on the battalion chief testing, and I'm pretty excited about where we'll be able to go with this, not only for the hiring that, or the promotions that will occur second to the results of that test, but to take the opportunity to create a framework and a process and a standard so that whenever we do promotional or new hire testing, we can execute with the proper people, with the proper knowledge and expertise and positions, down a rote process from start to finish that ends the selection of the most competent individual, and that's repeatable. So that is the intent behind that effort, and that is what I wanted to share with you all today. So I welcome any questions.
Do we have any questions for the chief?
I have.
We have one question for you.
Hi, our evacuation, are we on board with the Sedona, Police Department? Are we integrating our information together?
Yes. Matter of fact, Chief Foley was present in every one of these meetings, representing the interests of that. The city manager is there in a couple of them. And we even have some wonderful group photos showing us all hard at work at the map, which I believe that they put out in a press release. So they are fully integrated in. To be clear, I've written mass evacuation plans for different places, including Yellowstone National Park. So my role was just to facilitate the process. All the information came from, well, almost all the information came from law enforcement. And it was the agency having jurisdiction on that particular part of our district who was the lead in each one of those things. We have a supporting role there, and that was the role I served as we went through this process.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is Helen. Sorry. My question is, I think it's great that you've got the boxes and you've got the plans. What's the plan for communicating this information to the public and sharing this so that people know that there's a plan, number one, and have some idea that if they're asked to evacuate, what they're expected to do?
Yeah, so once again, I will be happy to support the city as they develop their communication strategy for their evacuation planning. I do know that as we adopt to integrate with our new phone systems, that we have left a space on there to be able to put automated messages relative to that. But normally, the way this works is that you have in jurisdiction develops the message in coordination with either the incident management team or, with the fire district. And then they push the message and we amplify the message. So we're not the lead on that part either, but we'll absolutely assist them in amplifying the message and help them in, any of their communication strategies that they develop in messaging that.
Okay, I guess the reason I raised most of the question is that there's been a fair amount of attention to the supposed absence of these plans. And I think it's going to be important, whether it's the police department or the fire district that communicates it, to let people know that we have something and give them some reassurance that this is taking place and some information that will help them feel more comfortable.
Well, thank you for that. And I will email Chief Foley at the end of this meeting, and I'll let her know about your concerns, Ms. McNeil, and that and what your wishes are.
Thank you, Chief Coyle.
Anybody else? Chief, just a quick question. This map, if and when communications are established to reach out to the community, is there going to be something in the neighborhood of blocks E1 through E5? You guys are now, time to get out of Dodge kind of thing, evacuate.
Yeah, Dave, thank you for that. The process that we use and that the city of Sedona uses too is the ready, set, go. So ideally, what you want to do is you want to have people in go that are the ones that where the threat is imminent, and then you would alert the bordering, if you will, blocks as by putting them in set, and then you would go out one more concentric circle and then have them in ready. And the intent behind that, which probably seemed pretty obvious when I said that, is to pre-warn people out a certain distance so that, hey, if the fire continues to move towards them, their evacuation level may be increased. But that's normally how it works. And I have not seen the city's communication plan. I do know that that's how we do it on the incident management team, and we changed evacuation plans 17 times on the Hermit's Peak fire in one day, evacuated 17 different communities. And it was the same process over and over again. But it's key that law enforcement is the one that makes that final decision before we amplify that message. So that's why I want to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn. But I do know that we use the ready, set, go. So I think generally speaking that would be the approach.
Gene?
Yeah, Chief, this is Gene McCarthy.
Oh, sir.
As you know, I reside in the village of Oak Creek. And this particular subject has been broached quite a few times over the past year or two, and the Sedona Fire District has responded in kind and provided input at their meetings. I'm well aware when you have law enforcement's responsibility in evacuation, and the sheriff's responsibility both in Yavapai County and Coconino County. I'm sure that both of those organizations were involved in the development of this mapping process and so on. But in the village of Oak Creek, there's still things up in the air, unanswered and so on. So have the coordinating council at the village of Oak Creek, have they been involved in this process?
The Yavapai County Sheriff's Office was involved, and they were the lead on the VOC. How they've disseminated that message or those, the products, a result of that effort, I'm not aware of. We did the areas within the city limits first, and primarily because of the little fire we had on the hill that everybody could see. And then we went out from there afterwards. So they just got those done today and out to the stakeholders, to the law enforcement agencies. I don't believe that they've communicated it yet, but I will also let them know that there's a a strong desire to have the results of that effort communicated to the VOC.
Well, thank you, Chief, because as a board member, I get occasionally questions from people within my neighborhood and so on about things that are going on within Sedona Fire District, and this is an important issue for them. So thank you very much, and I'd like to at least be up to speed on this issue, especially in that area served by Yavapai County.
Yes, sir. And when you're talking to your constituents, you can't tell them that, I don't even remember the name of that little fire, but the one that everybody could see from town. But when that fires up on the hill and there was a very remote possibility that would move towards 179, I use that as an opportunity to facilitate this effort, because it's always a lot easier to get everybody at the table when there's smoke in the air. And not to say that they wouldn't have been willing before, but everybody rallied and got this done in short order, and that was pretty exciting. So, but I'll let Coconino County know as well that there's a strong interest in knowing what the outcome of this project was, and that, you know, what products exist as a result of it to both counties.
Thanks, Chief.
Betcha.
Thank you, Chief Coyle, and Chief Azulis, if at all possible, as more things develop from this program, we look forward to seeing frequent and current updates to the board.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the board's want and desire to have this messaged correctly, and as Chief Coyle stated, you know, it's law enforcement's responsibility to message, but I'll make sure that we're working with our partners to get the message out that's effective.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Chief Coyle. Chief, back to you.
All right, I am going to act as everything else for this report. Community Risk Reduction Division Chief Dort Booth, a lot of the compliance engine data and information that she pulls for this report is pulled by her, and we haven't gotten to the point where we have the redundancies for the data, so that's why we have under construction. And this microphone's gonna drive me nuts. I can't say that in the past couple weeks, you know, I'm kind of chipping away, literally a couple weeks, chipping away at each division one at a time, and kind of with Dory's absence started with CRR, because we've got an interim fire marshal, and that to me is a pretty critical position. And somebody that has, you know, 30 years of experience with the district, works for the water company, knows every hydrant we have in town, but doesn't have a lot of the compliance background that Dory has. So been working with Inspector Rydell to make sure he's comfortable and understands roles and responsibilities, and that's been working towards that. And talking with Matt and our engine company captains, we're excited to kind of rehash a GIS CR migration for engine company inspections, and we're finding that we're inadvertently having some redundancies where CR might inspect something and then the following month the engine company's popping in, and that's not as efficient.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it involves a lot of different things, so we're excited about that. But they're just plugging away, getting inspections done as best as possible, and as Dory progresses with her healing, gone out and identified some third-party sources that if we get a big set of plans that needs to get done right now and needs an extra set of eyes, we have an opportunity to contract if need be to knock out a big set of plans. So Dory's done a great job of working with her staff and then also lining out some what-ifs, you know, as she progresses with her healing. And with that, you know, there's always a fire safety message with the community risk reduction, and I'm gonna leave it at, it's burn season, and it's time to get your burn permit if you wanna do burning around the district. I wanna remind everybody that on our website, there's a link to do it all online, and, just had a Burning Chiefs meeting last week, and, our community is very savvy, and a majority of our permits are running through the online portion. That's not the same for all communities in the Verde Valley, so we're ahead of the curve, but just ask our public if they're gonna do refuse burn or burn vegetation, or, you know, make sure they have a burn permit, because it could create an environment where our crews are running out for something that's not an emergency.
Thank you.
I'll jump back into operational support.
Okay.
It's, EMS wise, we've had some increased complexity to some of our calls, and Chief Coyle talked about it a little bit. But our guys just continue to do a fantastic job and adapt and overcome. But this time of year, EMS, we focus on getting our inventory and our stockpile back up. And we've got a younger firefighter on light duty right now working to build a new fire station inventory system, which will then sync with our software that I've spoken with before. And although it is a priority of mine, it is still moving forward, not as fast as I wanted for obvious changes in the organization, but we are moving forward with that. So that's kind of our focus with EMS, and then getting some training onboarded for the fall. We've got, speaking of training, we just had 2 firefighters complete their 1 year and got off probation, and both of them, for some reason, jumped right into medic class. And, they did a fantastic job on probation. They've got a lot of experience, and they're going to continue to make sure we have enough paramedics rolling out the door to serve this community. We also conducted our engineers boot camp where we bring in subject matter experts, and we run guys through a couple days. Folks that want to become engineers someday, they go through a couple-day class and just really focus on, operation and maintenance of our apparatus. And that's a program we developed last year, and we're going to continue to grow it. We've got a lot of great suggestions. One of them's to have our folks that have a desire to be an engineer, have to work in the shop for a week to see what the backside looks like and other things. So that's going to continue to develop, and I'll be excited to report out on that as it grows. And then we've got a couple guys, Firefighter Heckler and Captain Morales, that went to a lock and securities conference, and we've recognized savings to the district by having some in-house experts down to where they can recore and change locks in-house. We've got the equipment. So they went for an update because, like everything else in the world, it's not just a key in a keyhole anymore. There's all the electronic components to it. So there's ongoing training with that. And those are some of the big things from operational support this month. And got some photos, and if there aren't any questions about EMS or training, I'll move on to purchase orders.
I think we're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Purchase orders, $10,000 to $50,000. ESO Solutions, our annual agreement was $29,914. And ESO is the software we use to track everything. EMS calls to our trainings record and retention, to our fire calls, our NIFRS reporting. That's the software that's going to be used to track EMS inventory. It's finally the package we've landed on that is the one size fits most, and whereas we didn't have that before. Then Golden State Laundry, that's purchase extractors, and you wash our firefighting gear, you can't wash it in a standard washing machine and dryer because it just makes it smell good, but it doesn't take the cancerous contaminants out. And these extractors, for lack of a better term, are just a super strong washing machine. And they do just that. They work at a speed and a rate that expels and extracts those carcinogens a lot better. We're upgrading our system for that in alignment with our desire to continue towards cancer. And Pegasus out of scope work, that was some project work with the Pegasus Corporation that aligns with getting our structured game plan together for our radio infrastructure upgrades. And then Synchro Help Desk, that's essentially a program that it's how our folks tell the mechanic something's broken on the truck, and how they ask for IT help, or there's a map problem, so it'll go to GIS, or there's a broken gurney, so it'll go to EMS. And it's just that Synchro Help Desk. It's the software we utilize to ask for help to fix, repair, or maintain something. So those are the purchase orders, and then lastly, we've got a thank you letter from Oak Creek Knolls, and that was very nice. Saving our neighborhood. I think our guys did a great job with that, and it's great to get feedback from the public. And as you can see, the top stories were our crews out in California, and then, Chief Foley taking the lead. For any other questions?
Go ahead.
Okay, on the Golden State, laundry extractor,
Okay.
how many does the 25,199 purchase?
That's 2 units, it's associated equipment. They're very large, they're about 5.5 feet tall, and they're complex pieces of equipment.
Okay, now, this can't be servicing all the stations.
No, we've currently got 2 in service, so this will then put 2 more in service.
Thank you.
Chief, the goal is to have one in each station.
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
But with that, you know, depending on how Station 5 manifests, you know, we couldn't facilitate an extractor at that site right now because of the limited sewage situation, but downstream, yes, because it gets our crews back in service more rapidly, and then it reduces the requirement to transport that stuff and have the equipment out of service for extended periods of time.
You just spoke of sewage, which totally went bing bing. Where does all of that, waste material from the laundry cleaning this go to? Into the sewer?
It goes into the sewer, yes.
Okay,
The wastewater system, to be more specific. Depending on where it's at in the district, it goes to the associated wastewater facility.
doesn't that eventually build up?
You know, I can't speak to the wastewater process and how they separate and dispose of when they scrub and clean the water. But specifically to build up, I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, like carcinogens, if you're dumping them all into the waste system can only handle so much carcinogens, where it's, no, it's not radioactively toxic, but it's still toxic.
And that is the thing about our wastewater treatment. There's a lot of toxins they discover, from prescription pills to everything else. But to speak intelligently about specifically what the process is, I'd have to look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
There's an old saying, solution to pollution is dilution.
Yes.
Chief, do we have any, fire suppression personnel spread out across the country fighting brush fires anywhere?
We've got a crew in California, and they'll be returning Sunday.
Okay.
And then we'll see if California restructures and requests additional units, but right now they're bringing us home.
Yes. Any other questions for the chief? Okay, with that said, our next item on the agenda is a self-contained breathing apparatus issue. And I believe that's gonna be brought up by you, Chief.
Yeah, I spoke with Chief Cole, he's gonna cover it, and I can answer any questions as well, but working directly with one of those BCs and being one of the biggest operational tools we have at our disposal, I wanted Chief Coyle to speak to it, and I can answer any questions too.
Okay, Chief Coyle?
Yes, sir. So I'm gonna hit on a few of the highlights. Happy to answer any other questions, but as you can tell, it's a rather long board communication. We felt it was important to explain all the different decision points that were passed to come to this decision that we arrived at. So the first thing is that our current apparatus that we have right now is 13 years old, and in 2 more years will be out of service and will need to be retired. We have, recognizing that date was coming, and that there's been 2 different versions of the National Fire Protection Association, the NFPA standard, that have been updated, that 2 different versions of the standard, 2 different updates to the standard have occurred. That's a better way to say that. Since our breathing apparatus were purchased, we attempted to find alternative sources of funding. Looking at some of the successful grants, found that it's generally more successful as you go in as a group, or like a regional grant. We attempted that and then were unsuccessful, put it in the budget for 2020, and then thought, well, we're going to give it another shot. And Captain Ojeda was instrumental in facilitating that grant writing, reached out to a bunch of people. We were unsuccessful again. So the issues with our current SCBA's, some of the key ones are that our masts are no longer have integrated communication. The radios that we replaced that were used with the old masks were end of life, and we were at a point where we either decided to invest heavily in the intercom communications, hardwired communications, to be able to use our new radios, or we wait until we get an SCBA that has Bluetooth, which all the new radios now have Bluetooth. So you don't have to worry about the cable coming from your radio down to your or up to your mask getting disconnected. One of the other major changes is that there used to be proprietary hardware for buddy breathing. So if somebody's low on air, and I know David, Gene, you both know this, but if for the rest of y'all, if you can imagine that you've run out of air in your bottle and someone comes there to rescue you, the buddy breathing hose is what attaches between the two of you so you can balance your air between your two bottles. So if you come in with a fresh bottle, you give them half of yours. Up until the most recent standard of the most recent version of the NFPA standard, that was proprietary. So if we had a large fire that we had responders from other agencies that use different air packs, they could show up and not have a connection that was adaptable to ours. A couple of the other key benefits, if you will, to the new pack system is that they now use rechargeable batteries instead of the current packs that had 3 different battery locations. And while this certainly does not offset the cost of the air packs, it will decrease our use of disposable batteries by over 2,000 batteries per year just for SCBAs. So that's how many batteries it takes to make these work. Another issue is that the spare parts for these packs have become much more expensive, and we tried to pick up spare parts where we could whenever somebody would go out of the packs we're currently in into a newer model. But we have since exhausted all those, and if we replace some of the the electronics in them, it could be thousands of dollars. It could be $1,000 to replace certain electronics to get a pack back in service. So what we did after all those grant attempts and after recognizing that this was coming due is that we put it in the fiscal year 23 budget as part of the strategic capital plan. And then Chief Cochran, keeping an eye on things as he did, and communicating with the vendors, advised that the quoted price for these packs, there's 2 different vendors that can provide us with the packs we want, is going to increase by $54,000 after October 1st. Additionally, they have a sale, if you will, where for each one of the air bottles we buy, we get another one free. So since it was already in the capital plan, the choice to purchase before October 1st versus after October 1st is about $125,000 difference in price. And so that's one of the reasons we chose to go forward with this. We have a different, Gabe can tell me if I'm saying this wrong, but different best national price contracts, GSA, Houston Galveston, Defense Logistics. And we went out to both of the air pack vendors, and we found out Ellen Curtis provided us with the best price, about 4% below the other vendor. And so the intent is to purchase the request is that the board approve the purchase, the amount of $688,159.24 to Ellen Curtis for the 65 air packs, the bottles, and all the accessories that are associated with them. End of report, and I welcome any questions.
Question, what happens to all the used equipment?
I don't know if you heard that, Camelo asked what happens with all the, used equipment.
I did hear that, and you know, I know we've taken some in the past when we're doing drills, where we're doing just drag drills and everything, where we want someone in a pack, but we don't want to damage a pack. We've used them for that. They will go out of service. And Chief Cochran has been on vacation and in difficult cell service. He is on the line, so if he knows what happens with them, or if Chief Mazulis does, because I don't.
Is this something that we would then turn for resale to a district in need, or what is it that, or we just discard them?
Or commercial, yeah.
Dave unmuted, so I'll let him answer.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, typically, much like our Hearst tools and other equipment that's kind of getting towards their end of life, vendors will usually help us try to get in contact with somebody who might be willing to purchase them. For an example, our Hearst tools, college could use them. Obviously, we're not going to get much for them. It's kind of like a car that's, you know, barely running. There's some value in it, but it's not a whole lot. They'll typically help us try to connect us with someone who might be able to use them for the remaining life cycle that they have left. Again, it's not going to be a whole lot of money.
Thank you. Okay, and are there the numbers in here adequate for training purposes when we have classes coming through?
Yes, they are. I just paused for a moment because I wasn't sure if Dave was going to unmute, but yeah, they're adequate. They get the right number, the requisite number of packs on each one of the apparatus, and the requisite number of packs that we have in reserve, so that we can cycle them out if one of them has to be taken in for maintenance.
And usually an item for purchase this large, there's talk of a contract, a talk of some means of where do we spell out those particulars that may happen throughout the life of these units. Is that something we're considering for this purchase, or is this something that we don't have contracts for, or it's just the warranty on the equipment generally what the contract is?
We did get extended warranties on the equipment, and warranties on, there's also, these include a small TIC, a small infrared camera that's integral to the pack system, that's designed not necessarily for searches, but so you can escape. And that had a shorter, look at all this information, it had a shorter service or a shorter warranty life. And so in this cost is extending all those warranties to the same length of time. Chief Cochran, if you could please tell me what those are.
Yeah, the warranty for the pack and all the associated equipment is 15 years, which is the life of the pack. And the thermal imagers extends from 5 years to 10 years with that extended warranty. So it will be almost towards the end of life of the pack.
Thank you, sir.
This is Gene McCarthy. Typically, for example, engines, trucks, other apparatus and or vehicles are programmed out several years in advance, anticipating a purchase, largely due to because they're very costly, and so we have to put money in the piggy bank in order to do that. Same thing should apply with something such as SCBA's. Am I incorrect in assuming that that was not on the horizon for us?
No, this purchase has been on the radar, and as Chief Cole spoke to, we attempted a variety of grants, some successfully, regionalizing it to up the ante to try it on our own. And all along, Chief Cochran's done a really good job of working with Chief Coyle to, when we went to the new radios that were grant funded, made sure that, you know, talking to the air pack manufacturers back then to ensure that whatever we bought for communications would work with an eventual purchase of an air pack. And it's been a capitalized expense for a while, and I don't know, this is part of your question, I may have misheard you, but, you know, the neat thing about air packs is you can't do a gradual replacement of them. It's a systemic replacement, because
Understood.
know, the inherent dangers of having 2, 3 different systems in the fleet.
Right.
It's, even the day, I remember last time we replaced our air packs, even the day we replaced them, it was very purposeful, where we put engines out of service after the training, and it made the full switch, so they didn't get caught on a call where they needed it mid-switch. And so, we've spent a number of years preparing and knowing the need. This isn't anything that popped up, and we've got a history of aligning all the associated equipment, from radios to the helmets to how everything, our turnouts, to ensure that they'll all continue to work together.
Oh, thank you very much, and you've answered my question. My question was largely based on wanting to inform the people who might be listening in.
Yeah, the only thing I just want to add to Mr. McCarthy's comment, what she said is, this has been in our capital plan for a long time. We've not, so the funding has been set aside over the years. Again, our plan is designed for us to essentially take a small percentage of all of our capital purchases every year in our annual operating budget and set that money aside for those items as they come up. This has been one of those things, although with attempts at grants, we've tried to avoid needing to use those capital dollars. And now the time has come where, being unsuccessful with the grants and at the point of end of life, now utilizing those dollars that have been set aside over the years.
Well, certainly it is a vital piece of equipment. Your firefighters' lives depend on it.
Thank you, Gene. For legal, is a sales contract enough, or is that something that legal counsel should review as part of the purchase method? I mean, is there a need for a contract beside the warranties and the sales contract that would hold a little bit more legally binding in the event that something went wrong?
Normally, Mr. Chair, it's, hit and miss is the wrong word, but I would say that most of the time, we're not brought into the review of this type of, it happens at management level only. We get involved, only sufficient to work with management to make sure that warranty is satisfied with them, and that if there's going to be the execution of an agreement, there almost always is some sort of document that's executed by the parties. It looks like this agreement's actually going to serve as a contract, that a small contract addendum is used. It has the statutory provisions in it. I spoke with Heidi and the chief about this a little bit earlier. It appears to me that they have that addendum and typically use it, plan to do so here. It is an executed agreement. I was trying to ferret out whether or not there was going to be further agreement rather than this particular recognition. I'm not sure that was resolved. The chief and I spoke about it earlier. Heidi, did you get a chance to talk to management about that?
Not sure what your question is. Talk to which management?
Anybody else within management about whether or not it's going to be a separate agreement, or is this specification the board passed it?
This would be the only agreement that there is, that it is,
This
it'll be
particular
entailed.
document contemplates execution by the board chair. I think that that's being done because your acquisition policy calls for the board chair and the board to approve acquisitions over a particular dollar amount.
Right.
Because it has a provision for your signature, I recommend that you also direct that assuming you do vote to approve it, that you also direct that the small contract addendum that the district uses be executed in conjunction. That will require execution by the bid. Beyond that, we typically don't review the particulars of the specifications that are involved. This particular document, the board packet, doesn't have any of that. I'm assuming that management has seen that and is satisfied with it. Normally, those specifications board, it's kind of like buying a fire truck. They don't bring all those particular specifications to you. The contract that they provide to you is a broader-based document, not the particulars that you might see in the specification sheet.
Yeah, I bring it up primarily because, although much similar in an acquisition of large equipment such as apparatus, it never goes to, rarely does it ever go to legal counsel on a review. But with something with the particulars that we have in this that would affect human life immediately, a little bit different. But if the administration has reviewed that sales contract, reviewed the warranties that are given with each piece of that SCBA, because there are a lot of pieces to that, then this should be no different than any other purchase.
Yeah, we've not been asked to review the warranties that are identified in this document. We do not. We stop our review confirming that someone inside management has actually looked at the warranty sheet and is satisfied with it.
Chief Mazulis, the suggested motion does make reference to the requisition and the quote, and those are the two components that we need to ensure that are on this motion. Is that correct?
That is, that is my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
No.
No.
Okay, then, with that said, and Bill, if there's something I've left out as I state the motion, please jump right in there.
And Mr. Soto, if I may, Cochran, for decades, he's put a lot of work into, similar purchases, and I have every confidence in the work he put into making sure this was best price, the best product, and the best process for SFD. I didn't want to leave that on the table. And additionally, Chief Coyle, as you know, is extremely detail-oriented and worked with the management team and the entire process. And I'm confident in the purchase and confident in the equipment.
Okay, yes.
Just, when would we expect delivery, should the board pass it?
I need to, Dave, did you hear that question?
Probably not.
Might have lost him.
Okay,
No matter, just curious.
okay, with that stated, and there are no further questions, then, I move to approve requisition number Q09678 in the amount of $688,000, 159, let me say that again, $688,159.24 to LN Curtis and Sons for the purchase of 65 MSA G1 self-contained breathing apparatus systems, necessary accessories, and extended warranty as identified in the quote and requisition. Do I have a second?
I gladly second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion passes for the purchase of those SCBs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As stated, it's a critical piece of safety equipment for our folks. And Chief Cochran, it sounds like you're having some audio issues, but he just texted me that about 90 days to delivery.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Chief.
The best time frame we've seen on anything we've ordered lately, so.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, the last item on the agenda is discussion, board members' fire district-related activities since the last board meeting. And I will begin with Janet. You.
I am finally back to speed with Bill.com, thanks to many people's help. And so I got to my first payments this month.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, super. Helen, I know you're on the line there. Is there anything you'd like to pass along?
Well, I've, my apologies to Chief Missoula for not being there for his pinning, but congratulations. And other than that, my activities have been going to the 9/11 service and Bill.com and the usual thing, and the walkout. And this is the usual thing that we do as board members.
Okay, thank you. Gene?
Well, I look forward to a time when we can sit down and talk with our new fire chief, Chief Missoula, and I'm sure those meetings will be scheduled. I look forward to that. I don't have anything in particular. I have to tell you this, and I think you know, I'm very proud of this organization. I'm not only proud of it, I'm proud to serve in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And yes, today was my benchmark to work with staff to kick off the, hey, can I meet with the board members?
All right. Al?
Well, a couple things. Was honored to be at the walkout and to watch the entire process. It's so dignified and so professional, and it shows how structured and disciplined the entire environment of fire is. Something that took me a while to get used to. It's kind of like, you know, like when I was in the Army, but it was great. But I have a question. When it comes to the chili cook-off, how is fire involved?
We're working on that. So there's, with a lot of our staffing challenges right now, so you have to have a food handler's card, you have to use a commercial kitchen, you can't cook it at the firehouse, and then there's availability. So at the very least, we're gonna have folks there representing the district. Our hopes are to have a bucket of chili in the competition, but.
Well, if you need a commercial kitchen, I know where there is one.
Okay, I'll speak with you tomorrow.
Okay, I'll be helping to make the chili for the mayor, but we'll be doing it on Friday, so.
Yeah, that's the challenge, is just, the biggest one is the food handler's card as well as getting that.
But you can get those online.
I understand, it's just the logistics, and so we're working on it.
Okay, and the other thing is I'm involved with the Wine Fest this weekend, and I'll be working with Kirk, the Assistant Fire Marshal, that's his position, and coming out and checking out the big tents. I have a big circus tent being installed tomorrow in the rain. That's gonna be fun to watch. But I think with Dory's absence, we are pretty well tuned in to what is expected of us to satisfy fire's requirements for safety in an event that will draw a couple, 2,000 to 3,000 people.
Okay, thank you, Al. And I'll go ahead and close out with some of the things I was involved with this past month. First and foremost was the fire chief's walkout that staff, with Heidi, I worked together and putting that whole ceremony together, and it came out without a hitch. And I'd like to think that Chief Trotwine was pleased with the whole thing. So, the 9/11 ceremony we had, it was a small, intimate group of about 30 to 35 people. I had an opportunity to say a few words, and I got a lot of thank yous, and they were glad that they were there, even though it was a brief, intimate setting. I had an opportunity to do a wellness check, just dropped by to visit Chief Coyle to see how he's doing at his home, and he is well on his road to recovery, as well as Chief Booth. She's doing well and getting better every day. I don't want to forget thanking our gift coordinator for the fire chief and his walkout, Gene McCarthy. He's the one that sought out the gift. We just gave him an amount, and he was able to buy something for the chief. And it was a fine gift at that. Thank you. Also, I'd like to thank Kim, our board secretary, if you will. She has worked probably for the last 3 to 4 months without Mass 360, which means every packet that comes through is less than, it's not easy to begin with, but it comes through our personal emails rather than to the district, tablet. And, I know we're working on it, but we can't get it soon enough. So the sooner the better, but thank you for all the work you put in on that. Lastly, I am involved with Firewise. Chief Booth and I have stated it, I think, the last meeting that we've attended meetings, but we're moving forward with trying to bring it to the Verde Valley and establishing a means of having community members, you know, reach out and know who to reach out to. But it means that we need to go out to the city councils and to the fire districts within the Verde Valley and let them know it's coming. It's running strong in Prescott, and we're gonna be a spinoff of their committee. And they're willing to help us, provided we help them, and our help towards them is to become board members for them. So Chief Booth and I are working on that. So that's coming down the pipe. But with that said, and also the fire chief's testing process, again, thank you very much for all of that. There was a lot of hard work in that, and it went without a hitch. So with all that said, I want to thank everybody for all the hard work involved with everything that's been going on this past month. It's been crazy. But I look forward to our new chief, Chief Mazulis, and all your goals and strategic plans, and see how they come along. So unless there's anything else by anybody, this meeting is adjourned.
So this is just coming a brick.
Yeah, it's a brick. If they need a hole here,